Remember back in the day when Hollywood was about the beautiful people making movies? We did not know a lot about the real lives of the celebrities, and very few of them were out there trying to sell us on some self help guru fad, bizarrely scented candle or diet thing. Well, honestly, you'd have to be pretty old to remember back that far because Hollywood celebrities have been doing similar things since forever. What's changed is that in the last 20 years or so, being an A-list celebrity is way less likely to offer you protection for the nasty deeds they do in the dark. What's changed is that with the advent of the internet and social media, we now get to know near everything about what the beautiful people and those connected to them are up to, including their crimes and misdemeanors. Think Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey, Allison Mack. Holding powerful, previously near untouchable people to account is, in my humble opinion, absolutely glorious. It makes society safer, puts equity nearer to within reach. If the rest of us average humans are expected to behave lest there be consequences, well, now so are those who believe they rank at the top somewhere. We're also in the days when cults, pyramid schemes, and shady MLMs are also held to account. Today we talk about a sort of shitstorm that involves celebrity, cults, MLMs, a self-appointed guru that would, as shitstorms do, damage a lot of lives, and in the end, they were taken down. The whole ugly affair would even bring in the Dalai Lama. Where to start? Well, let's start with Keith Raniere, scumbag. He was the creator of Pyramid Scheme Consumers Byline, which was shut down by the New York Attorney General. At the time of shutting down the business, he paid a $40,000 fine and was permanently banned from promoting, offering, or granting participation in a chain distribution scheme. Only 2 years later, Raniere would create an even nastier scheme, NXIVM. He and this woman, Nancy Saltzman, called NXIVM a personal development company that offered ESPs or executive success programs and self-improvement techniques. Raniere would claim that the company emphasized people experiencing more joy in their lives. The name comes from the Latin word for debt bondage, nexum. By one account, trademark registration for the name says that it translates to the next millennium. We're not able to find any language which translates in that way. In Latin, the next millennium is postero millennium, because millennium is a Latin word to begin with. And we've also come up empty with all of the other languages we looked at. So, if y'all know what language they claim this is from, please enlighten us. So they would have these seminars, and students in them would call Rainier Vanguard. It's from a video game. And Salzman was prefect, because she was said to be his first student. In the space of 5 years or so, some fairly well-known people had come to take ESP classes from NXIVM. These included Sheila Johnson, who was a successful businesswoman, Antonia Novello, the former Surgeon General, Stephen Cooper, who was an Enron executive, and other business and political personalities and celebrities. Up to this point, NXIVM would claim that its training was a trade secret. It made participants sign non-disclosure agreements and sued when the Ross Institute published part of the content from its manual on their website. The manual was given to them by former NXIVM member Stephanie Franco. She was sued as well. The lawsuits were dismissed because, well, critique and criticism are fair uses of copyrighted material. It's how everyone from the nightly news to TikTok can reuse someone else's material for critique, criticism, fair news reporting, and educational purposes. When a psychiatrist reviewed the manual materials, he identified the contents as expensive brainwashing. And so it was. That's pretty strong critique. NXIVM was set up as an MLM where members were each expected to recruit new members, and so on, while Rainier and Saltzman sat at or nearest the top of the pyramid. What was going on at NXIVM was more than a little brainwashing in order to achieve self-improvement. This wasn't a bit of hypnosis, say, to quit smoking, for example. It was darker. It was far more disturbing. The brainwashing so extensive that some participants wasted $1 million. Some destroyed their businesses. Some began recruiting others into the fold. Some allowed themselves to be burned with brands. And some did the branding. Claire and Sarah Bronfman are Seagramiresses who were involved with NXIVM. They took out a line of credit to loan the business $2 million, which was supposed to be repaid through personal training sessions and phone consultations with Saltzman. Pretty damn expensive personal training. They took Rainier's advice on bad business deals as well. Coverage of their relationship with NXIVM was not positive, as Rainier would have wanted, but was quite extensive in Forbes between 2003 and 2010. Bronfman's sisters allegedly put pressure on connections of theirs to seek criminal investigations against people and organizations that dared criticize NXIVM. There were dossiers kept on all manner of folks who criticized or questioned NXIVM, and people attached to the company, and also on people who left the organization. Almost laughably, Rainier and the Bronfman sisters set up an organization called the World Ethical Foundations Consortium. They sponsored a visit by the Dalai Lama to Albany in 2009. It was canceled at first because of the negative press surrounding NXIVM and was rescheduled with the intervention of Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen, who was having a personal relationship with Sarah Bronfman. Yep, the Dalai Lama. Some years later, Gyaltsen was suspended from his position with the Dalai Lama because of corruption charges. Are we surprised? Even the Dalai Lama isn't safe from corrupt people seeking to use his position as the spiritual leader of Buddhists for their own personal gain. NXIVM was associated with more than the questionable World Ethical Foundations Consortium. There was JNS, the Society for Women, the Society of Protectors for Men, DOS, which meant Dominus Obsequitius Sororium, which we will talk a lot more about, and the Rainbow Cultural Garden, which were child care organizations, because, well, start them young is a goal for many, many cults. Then there was the Knife of Aristotle, which purported to be a news organization that would identify and measure media bias. Because if you want to claim people are biased against you, why not set up an organization that would examine and report on that bias? Right? Right. So, DOS was this organization for women. The term translates to roughly Master of Servile Women. The women in DOS referred to themselves as slaves, and they were branded. That's right, branded. A piece of metal heated up to ungodly temperatures and laid on the skin. You know, what we used to do to cattle. In this case, instead of a steel brand, they use a cauterizing pen, but it's the same concept. They were branded with a symbol that was made up of the initials of Rainier and Allison Mack, the Smallville actress who was part of the cult. These women had to provide their masters with nude pictures as well and accept corporal punishment from their masters. They had to give up very personal information about themselves as collateral, and law enforcement would say that DOS members were forced into sexual slavery. Once women like Sarah Edmondson, a Canadian actress, began coming out about their experiences, hundreds of members would begin to leave NXIVM and dozens more would speak out, including India Oxenberg, who now runs a podcast talking about her healing after her escape. There was financial predation, sexual predation, physical abuse, sex trafficking, forced labor, the details of which were horrendous. Coercion can in the form of threatening to release that intimate information about targets and taking away their assets. The arrests would begin in March 2018. The end was near, finally. Rainier was arrested in Mexico, and then Mac was arrested. Mac was a recruiter and member of DOS who allegedly coerced women into sexual activity with Rainier. Claire Bronfman and Nancy Salzman were next, then Lauren Salzman, Nancy's daughter, and Kathy Russell. Rainier, in addition, was charged with producing and keeping child sexual abuse material. Who's surprised? The material related to a 15-year-old girl. Kathy Russell pleaded to visa fraud and got 2 years probation. Lauren Salzman would plead guilty to racketeering and conspiracy and get 5 years probation. Everyone else was headed to prison. None of the women would force other women to testify at a trial. They all took pleas. Oh, but Rainier would make them testify. Allison Mack pleaded to racketeering and conspiracy and got 3 years prison. Nancy Salzman got 42 months prison for racketeering conspiracy, and Claire Bronfman, of the Pressure to Criminalize Critics fame, would get 81 months prison. Bronfman appealed and she lost. Rainier was convicted by a jury for racketeering conspiracy, racketeering, forced labor conspiracy, wire fraud conspiracy, sex trafficking conspiracy, sex trafficking itself, and attempted sex trafficking. He would get 120 years in prison and $1.75 million in fines, along with a $15,000 victims of trafficking assessment. He also has to pay $3.46 million in restitution to 21 different victims. Rainier appealed. Rainier lost. He's serving federal time, so there's no reduction in his sentence, and he will never be released. All of NXIVM's assets were forfeited. That's not the end of it, though, because there is still the racketeering civil suit. Salzman, Rainier, Claire and Sarah Bronfman, Lauren Salzman, Allison Mack, Kathy Russell, Karen Unterreiner, Brandon Porter, Danielle Roberts, and Nikki Clune are all being sued for the abuse that the plaintiffs suffered at the hands of NXIVM and DOS. There's no longer much trace of the Rainbow Cultural Garden or other associated NXIVM organizations either. The RCG in UK's Instagram hasn't posted since 2018, and a website that used to belong to RCG in Guatemala has almost hilariously been hijacked and repurposed to sell cleaning services. It's an accidental analogy to the cleanup of a sex cult and its leaders. There is an older but really good podcast focused on this entire ordeal. Link in the description if you want to learn more. Podcasters are not sponsors, just a program I would personally recommend. If you want to dive deeper than this video, I also recommend reading all of the articles that Forbes has printed on it over the years. Again, not a sponsor in any way, but the articles are detailed, credible, and very, very thorough. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.